Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. As Nottingham Forest are thrashed 5-0 at the Vitality Stadium against Bournemouth on Saturday. We shall reflect on that. Whether it's just a one-off, hopefully it is, just a small blip in the road, and look ahead to another big game next weekend against Brighton, a 12:30 kickoff at the City Ground. We'll also reflect on a few players that maybe were below par, or maybe even all of them are as well. So we'll discuss all of that throughout. As always, do get your comments in. Nottingham Forest News on Facebook and Garibaldi Red live on YouTube. Joined first of all by Sara Brown from work. Sarah, so appreciate you hopping on during your office day. I hope your boss isn't watching. And I like the headset as well. I said to you before we started recording, it's like Chris Kamara.
I don't actually think it might be. It might not actually be working, so I might not actually need it. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, so maybe the headset's not working.
I need to plug it in the other hole, I think.
We will rock with your, without now your Chris Kamara headset. Also joined by Dave, Aussie Dave, the other side of the world, and another time zone mate. So you've had more time to reflect on this game than we have. How are you, mate? And also, what did you make of it from your perspective? You know, you've been on this podcast many times where we've been talking about highs. That was a bit of a low Saturday, wasn't it?
Well, it certainly was when you stayed up until 4 a.m. and didn't eat dinner, so you could order a late night pizza and watch the match from your bed, all being excited. And then the pizza doesn't turn up for half an hour, and then you were going to go to sleep at the 65th minute, and then the pizza didn't turn up, so I had to watch the full set of the goals through. I think my key commentary for us all Nottingham Forest fans is that it's never as good as you think, and it's never as bad as you think either. And so maybe we just got a little bit ahead of ourselves and got a little bit of complacency. And I did remark that if you looked at the training montage video that the club put out a couple of days ago, you could see this performance coming, in hindsight being a wonderful thing. You just saw it coming a little bit. So now's the reaction, and I think it's important for us as the fans not to overact and put undue pressure on the team, because the team reacted poorly to first goal. The coaching staff, they just lost it. As I thought, just the team, just like Morato and Sousa got a yellow card from the sideline. They just felt like they lost it. So the reaction this next couple of matches and for this next match, really, it's a critical game for us for the rest of the season, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I also think, Colin Fray asked Nuno the question of, were some of the players tired and almost fitness concerns? And me reading between the lines, really, Nuno's answer probably was almost, agreeing with Colin Fray's question, basically, and saying that a lot of the players were tired. And, there have been some big games. James Perch alluded to it also on Radio Nottingham, listening to him on the commentary, and he talked about it almost being, they've thrown everything at the Liverpool games, they've thrown everything at Southampton. Remember, we had to almost fight for our lives for the last 10 minutes. So maybe that's just took a toll on the players. Sarah, you were there in the away end. What was the away end like? Because you follow Forest week in, week out, as a lot of people do, and I'm sure, like the rest of us, you go to Bournemouth and you're probably thinking, well, this is the new Forest this season, so fingers crossed we can get a result and we're away from home and you have confidence. But I didn't expect 5 goals, and I'm sure you really didn't stood in that away end either, did you?
No, definitely didn't expect 5. I was kind of hoping for a high-scoring draw. My husband always says Bournemouth are a really good side and everyone underestimates them. He says it all every year, every season, and I think that's the case. But I think we've played them probably just at the wrong time. They've probably hit us just at the right time. We have played, so we've given everything into the last few games. Well, every game. It was a bit open for us, wasn't it? So the away end was quiet, obviously, as you can expect. I was surprised there was quite a few people going, but I wanted to stay to the end to make sure that I showed, I'm still happy where we are, and third in the table, we still can't be too upset about.
Yeah, absolutely. 5-0, it's just a very odd scoreline. I often think in football, when you see a 5-0, it's almost a scoreline that gets a manager sacked. It's obviously not saying that, but I'm just saying that.
I was glad it wasn't 6-0 towards the end, to be honest, because that free kick could have gone in.
There was some, it just seemed like it was one of those days, to say the least. David, from the start, really, I thought that Forest just struggled. I thought the writing was almost on the wall. You look at the first goal, Forest didn't close him down. The defence
No, it's
looked
worse
so
than that.
open, and I just thought that they just almost invited the goal, really.
Well, I remember watching it thinking no one is moving to a position where they can easily receive the ball off that throw in. They just stood still. And it's football 101, isn't it? That you move into a position where you can receive the ball. And so he threw it to Ryan Yates, who's not the player you probably throw it to when you need a player to skillfully get around a player. And Yates was immediately dispossessed, and Elliot Anderson and Yates were out of position. And then they just hooned at us, and you could see Yates motioning to for Olorena to go and tackle them. It was a clear just switch off, but there just seemed to be that big gap in the centre of the field. And then Forest did respond after that. They had a couple of minutes. They had the Yates chance, which if that goes in, maybe it's a different kettle of fish. But it's almost like they just don't know a different tactic of playing almost when they go down by one, and they weren't sure what to do. They certainly, look, you learn a lot more from your losses than your wins. And so maybe we just need a bit of an alternate strategy. But that first goal, goodness me, it was a shocker.
Yeah, it's a good point actually. That maybe tactically, do Forest have a little bit of a plan B when it isn't going wrong? God, it feels like we're talking about the Mark Warburton days when we talk about plan A and plan B and all of that. Sarah, did you when you stood in that away end, do you expect the 5 goals? And obviously, also, going back to Dave's point about there not being a plan B, but you'd think maybe Forest, because it is almost this new Forest this season, you just don't expect them to concede 5.
Well, definitely didn't expect 5. I thought they might have been a bit tighter at the back, especially after the second one, especially after they had the third and disallowed. I thought, right, we'll sort this out now and we'll get tight. I mean, it didn't look like we were going to win it. Even there was talk around us like, well, we'll win this 4-3. I think it was all tongue in cheek. Really, really unexpected. But everything they hit. I mean, I looked at the stats quickly on the way home, and we had 49% possession and was it 2 more shots, 18 to their 16, which is really unlike us. And everything they shot went in, but they hit it with they were pacey. Everything they hit looked dangerous, and every time they got the ball, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be a goal. Whereas we were just off it, even though we were having lots of shots. The Milenkovic header was, perhaps needed a bit more on it. Ryan Yates had one that went wide, and early on, Ilanga's chance. I mean, if that had gone in, I think it would have been a bit of a different game. But it was one of those games, and we've seen them, haven't we, where literally the opposition touches every ball and it goes in. I don't know, we just weren't at it at all. And Bournemouth were very good. Can't take anything away from them. They looked exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, yesterday at work, we did a feature on 5 Live about Bournemouth and just how brilliant they've been this season, and almost talked about them being a bit of an odd club. And I mean that in the nicest way. They've got the smallest attendance in the Premier League. Bournemouth's a fairly small place, and there's some crazy stats about them. And they had that unbelievable season. I think it was 2007 when they stayed up with a 16-point deduction in the Football League. So they're a bit of a mad club, and almost how they've risen and kind of challenged the top 6 narrative, obviously, as Forest have done as well. But to put 4 past Newcastle and then 5 past Forest, probably 2 of the most informed teams, not just in the Premier League, but arguably even Europe at the minute. Fair play to them, full credit. Dave, what did you make to the starting 11 by Nuno? There was a lot of criticism that came his way. Dominguez over Yates, all of that debate. I mean, Jota playing, obviously Callum Hudson-Odoi struggling with his injury. Hopefully nothing too serious and he'll be back for Brighton. But just some below par performances from the players. But did Nuno get the team selection wrong from the start, maybe?
Well, Callum Hudson-Odoi is, maybe we've underestimated how important he is to the team and the outlet up the front. So my take, and I said this a couple of days ago, was that if Callum Hudson-Odoi's out, who's your next best player? And then you make the squad fit or the team fit for that. And based on that, I would have thought Morato would have been ahead as a player than Jota Silva. So if you're playing Morato, then your shape is a little bit different. You've got your 3-4, 2-1 almost as your Christmas tree, or your 3-4-3. and you've got a Langer on one wing, and you've got Gibbs White tucked in a little bit, and it's a bit more free flowing. Now, if we'd have played that style, then we might not have been carved up in the middle as much. But Nuno clearly just got this one wrong, and I think we need to be accepting of, all of us in our professional lives. Sometimes we just get stuff wrong. I work in sales, and sometimes the sales pitch is wrong. Nuno got this one wrong, and so there's something about Bournemouth, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the distance that we have to travel, or the way that Nottingham to Bournemouth just is. Like, the club, we just don't seem to have this trip sussed. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't travel to Bournemouth very often from Nottingham, so I can't say. Like, is it as simple? Can it be as simple as that, Sarah or Max?
Oh, I don't know.
Can it be?
Well, I mean, Forest haven't beaten Bournemouth since 2015. They are our bogey team. And I saw a point on Twitter as well, and I don't know if you did, Sarah, where it was almost our bogey team is now becoming our super team. So there's no way that we're ever going to beat them.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but yeah, I'd agree. I mean, we just don't. I mean, I think it was it a home win, 2-1, or
yeah, it was.
When Eddie Howe went up.
Yeah,
I was there that game when we last beat them. But I mean, a lot of the pundits talk about us, Fulham and Bournemouth, and I say it a bit really, that we all went up in the same season. But prior to that, Fulham and Bournemouth have had a few years in the Premier League, and Bournemouth had 5 consecutive, I think it was, before they came into the Championship. So they did have a good team when they went up. So I wasn't surprised we didn't really beat them when we were in the Championship. I did think we might get a draw. I did put us down for a win, but that's just because I always tend to put us down for a win on some of my picks. But yeah, I think they are. I mean, this 5-0, it's just going to get worse. It's not going to get better, is it? I mean, at least we drew with them at the beginning of the season. Now we've lost 5-0. Are we ever going to beat them?
I think that's the big question. I think that honestly is the big question.
I mean, they were singing to us, "Can we play you every week?"
Oh, their taunts were quite funny. Nottingham Forest, you've done it again.
Yeah,
like, for a neutral, it would have been quite amusing. But we're basically the Liverpool. They're Nottingham Forest. It's like Bournemouth. They're just like taunting us. I'm surprised they weren't singing the "In Your Head" song to Nuno.
I was just about to say that, Dave. I was just about to say that, mate.
I think they're in our head, not Nuno's.
So, but what's going to happen? Can I throw one at you, Sarah? Like, is it going to be wholesale changes and dumps now? Like, are we going to see Awonyi in for Wood? Are we going to see Danilo back? Are we going to see Alex Moreno? Like, what does that team sheet? There you go. Max gets to take a glass of water while I have to throw one at Sarah. Yeah, like, what's going to be that team sheet next? Like, I'm tempted to ring the changes, aren't you?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I'm a great believer. It's like, a lot of it is when you play a team as well, and we've just played them off the back of a drumming of Newcastle, and 4-1 at Newcastle. They were flying high. They are flying high. He's a good manager. He's got it right. They've played us probably at the right time. We definitely miss Callum Hudson-Odoi. I absolutely, even if he doesn't get an assist or a goal, every week I just think he's just unbelievable to watch him. The way he protects the ball, no one can get the ball off him. It's just, he keeps the ball so well. And I think with those changes that we made and moving Elanga on the other side, I think, I think if he's fit, he'll come back in, or at least be on the bench, because we need him. We desperately need him back. And I'm not saying it like that's why they beat us at all, because it was only one injury compared to what they've got. But we did miss him, definitely. But I don't think it'll be wholesale changes. I think he'll stick with what's been good all season. Surely he can't panic. I think none of us can panic. We've got to just stay, composed, and it's one of these, put it behind us. And at the end of the game, when they came and they were clapping, and the fans were clapping them, Morgan Gibbs White was going, I'm sorry, it's not good enough, but so they know, they don't need telling, do they? So maybe it's what we needed, a wake-up call. Maybe, we've had some tight games and we've probably rode our luck a little bit. Wolves, we defended so great against Liverpool. Maybe this, maybe Bournemouth at home, we can settle it down a bit. We're going to be nervous though, aren't we?
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult game on Saturday. I think that I think that it will almost have that little nervy feel, considering Forest are coming off the back of a defeat, and Brighton aren't an easy opposition at all. A few comments that I will read out. This one from Henrik, bit of a long one. 7-0 in 135 minutes of football. There must be enough to talk about in the evaluation of Saturday's game and the general mental state of the squad right now. Remember, it's okay to believe you can fly as long as you keep your feet firmly planted on the ground. I think we can see a change in the players' mindset, and some could be a bit carried away by the success. Matt says, yes, it started going wrong against Southampton, but we managed to get over the line. They were also too quick for Yates. I feel sorry for Nuno as well on his birthday. What a dreadful birthday present to see your team lose 5-0. Dave...
Morgan's today as well, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Even worse. Bless them both. I'm sure they'll be all right. Dave, let's talk players. Below par performances from possibly all. We've got to single him out because he's got a lot of criticism. But Jota Silva, the man that I always thought might have been a key player for Forest, and will happily admit maybe I'm wrong now. But I just thought he had a really, really poor game on Saturday. Do you agree?
Well, it certainly puts to bed the Jota Silva as ahead of Anthony Elanga discussion that you and I had a few weeks ago, doesn't it? I just worry for Jota Silva, he just doesn't have the speed or quite the class that we need. And when you've seen him come off the bench before, I just wasn't comfortable with his ability to take chances at the end, and he just looked a little bit lost and a deer in headlights out there, didn't he? And so, and we didn't even have the chances. At least when Elanga goes missing in a match, there's a chance of just a moment of brilliance where Elanga can just find himself back in the match. Similar for Taiwo as well, you would say. I'm not sure we're going to get that from Jota Silva, so maybe he needs a little bit more time, or maybe not sure. But I also thought Sosa was ahead of him, so that also surprised me, if I'm honest, that Jota Silva came in ahead of Ramon Sosa. So, yeah, it's not looking good for Jota Silva. In terms of players in the 25, I think his spot might be in a little jeopardy.
Sarah, this is a bit of an odd point, just off the back of Dave's, but you wonder whether Forest signed Jota Silva because we were a team the club maybe thought we'd be mid-table. We were going to be kind of in that bottom half of the Premier League table. So I mean that in a way of the quality of the player. So maybe Jota Silva is a bottom half player. Now, when we're in the top half and we're going to be playing difficult teams, and Bournemouth are a arguably top 8 club at the minute, you could even possibly say pushing towards the top 6, they're challenging for Europe as we are now, which shocks people to say. But maybe Jota Silva's almost below par. You know, he isn't a high Premier League quality player, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, he still looks a bit raw to me when he's playing. It's just he gives everything, doesn't he? But it just doesn't come off for him sometimes. You know, he's jumping in the air, there's arms, legs flying everywhere. Whereas Sosa seems a bit more composed. And I would, you know, they're always good when they're not playing, aren't they? These players. So, but they're definitely an upgrade on what we had last year. I mean, we've definitely upgraded to last year. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We're all going to be a bit disappointed now, I think, if we don't stay up there, aren't we? So maybe we'll do some business in the transfer window this week. We haven't got long left. Is there a week left of it? Is it the 4th it shuts? So yes. Maybe that will just spur us on to bring a couple in, because I think we definitely need it. But yeah, he has some really good attributes, but I think for a side going for Europe, you know, maybe he's just not quite good enough yet. Maybe he needs another season. So, I mean, I'm always try and look at glass half full rather than empty. So, but Elanga, yeah, he's proved a lot of people wrong, hasn't he? Everyone was having a go at him, and he's just shown his class. And I think that's the difference. It's just class, isn't it? Class with Elanga and class with Callum Hudson-Odoi, and they are. He's like Callum Hudson-Odoi is like I was saying when he came off with his groin. I was like, he's just like a thoroughbred, isn't he? He's built like one as well. He's just like, but we've got to protect him, and we can't afford to use him if he's injured. So.
But they just seem to lose composure, didn't they, Max? Like, Morgan Gibbs-White was back on some free kicks. Like, why is he doing that? Like, we know that Morgan Gibbs-White can't kick the free kicks. Like, they just seem to, I don't know, lose it. We might want to
I just
cover
thought
up on Jubba's.
it was a bad day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we comment on Jubba in the comments? Point, Max, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah. I mean, I can't put it up because it's got a bit of bad language in it. But he's kind of a comment referring to that. It's the result was on Nuno and not the players, and that the players were quite overworked. And I was going to talk about the players actually being overworked, Dave. Just back to your question there, I genuinely do think you looked at the players on Saturday, and maybe it's different being there. I wasn't there, but I watched it on the telly, and I thought they looked tired. They looked really leggy. They looked like they just needed simply a couple of days off. And people go, oh, well, they are professional footballers. And of course, they are professional footballers, and that is their job week in, week out to go and perform, and that's what they get paid simply to do. But in the same way, they're all human. And well, there was some kind of awful abuse towards Murillo as well for going away to Paris, a couple of days ago after the result. He's gone away with his girlfriend clearly to Paris. Just leave the man alone. Surely he's in enough credit to allow himself a bit of a break. I think that the work that Murillo does for the football club on and off the pitch, I think he deserves. He deserves a 3-day trip in Paris.
Yeah, can I just say, Max, I think something we've also might notice with the players being run off their feet is that now that Forest are high profile and the glamour up and coming team, we don't get free hits. We don't get teams not turning up ready to play. Bournemouth were ready. They were ready for playing Nottingham Forest. And so the teams that are coming up against us now, and every match that Nottingham Forest plays is an event. And so he's going to take, a physical and also mental toll. And maybe that's why the training regime was a little bit leaner during the week. And maybe that's where the freshen app just comes in, and you might see Moreno, and you might see, maybe we've been leaning on the top 11 too much. Like, how good would I would say at peak Taiwo right about now? A fit Danilo and Ibrahim Sangare. There's guys would be pretty handy players to be coming into the team right now if they were ready to go on a squad rotation. So, yeah, Jabba, I see your point. But yeah, Premier League's hard for a long season.
Well, Nuno said he was going for it, didn't he? Which is always a little bit worrying, isn't it? Because that does sound you're going for a bit of an open game, which it was. Whose fault is it? I don't know. Is it the managers? Did he set us up wrong? Should we have been a bit more defensive and gone for like a 0-0 or a 1-1? Or I don't know. We could sit here all day. All I know is that what I watched on Saturday wasn't the Forest I've been watching all season. So if it's a bad game, whether it's the players or the manager's fault, surely we can forgive them a bad day. Let's hope what we see on Saturday is not what we saw on last. If we see that again this week, then we may have a problem.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've got to bounce back very quickly. You mentioned as well, Dave, about bringing a player in and things like that with the January transfer window. Would you be tempted to go and get? Obviously, we talk about the need for a striker, a Premier League ready striker, which is hard to get hold of these days, especially in January. It's a difficult window to buy in. But would you be going for a winger? Would you be going for someone that can challenge Callum Hudson-Odoi and Anthony Elanga and possibly be that Premier League quality compared to the likes of Sosa and Silva?
Well, a third winger would be pretty handy. I think you also just want a bit of rah-rah, and so someone who might be able to come in and say, "Come on, boys, we can go," and just someone who might. When you're just in those scenarios and someone just comes in and just has that energy, and maybe we need that, and someone experienced, gun striker, the Wolves guy or Cesar or one of these guys. I think they're certainly going to be more active maybe than they were planning. And the chat of, let's do it with the players we've got. That may not work. But you're allowed to change your mind based on new information being presented. I'd be buying 2 or 3 players, I think.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it's not a mad one where if we lose on Saturday, we could see 10 players come through the door on deadline day. What? I'm
as long as John Joe Shelby isn't walking through the door, Max, I think everyone will be okay.
Yeah, him, Harry Arter, and make sure we can send Emmanuel Dennis on his way too, who's still on the books at Forest. Somehow, I was playing FIFA the other day, and obviously, it had like the updated squads on FIFA, and
you can play Dennis.
I was like, why on earth is Dennis on this this roster of players where you can select. This comment which says, problem is Nuno has us punching above our weight, which has unrealistically raised our expectations. Whoever scored first could implement their tactics better. That is what happened. Also, this one, we do need a couple of players in, freshens us up and gives us a boost. This one as well. I was very surprised we did not start with 5 at the back as per Brentford, especially with Callum Hudson-Odoi out. Yeah, and then obviously Morato comes on, and you maybe expect Forest will shut up shop then and try and just defend and almost, protect the goal difference, shall we say.
Our goal difference is done, Max. It doesn't matter. Like, we're not beating anyone on goal difference. We might struggle to beat Southampton on goal difference the way we're going.
Yeah, but maybe if you're challenging Europe and you need a bit of goal difference around you because it goes down to goal difference on the last day.
Yeah, I think we're going to be behind. It does, but I think we're likely to be behind. I don't think we can recoup the amount that we're behind now. Just seems to be, we're just miles off, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of kind of other players we can single out.
I know one we can single out, Max.
Go on.
Max, are you finally going to agree with me?
Go on.
That perhaps our dear captain, Marvel, Ryan, does not have the quality for the top of the Premier League and may be better suited as a squad player or lower down and not starting as often.
Here's my point about Ryan Yates. And I mean this obviously in the most respectful way to him, because he is a brilliant servant. I think he's a brilliant player.
He's a brilliant player.
I think Dave, he is suited against, hear me out, the top half of the Premier League, and obviously Bournemouth are there right now, right? But he's suited against almost the top 6 narrative. So your Liverpools, your Arsenal, Manchester United, Man City. A player that can almost get under, should we say, high-profile players' skins and almost wind them up and break down the game and be that player in midfield. And an area where football's won so much these days, where he can break it up and he can be that scrappy player. How many times do we have a result against Tottenham? And I can remember, again on Boxing Day, I went on social media and all the Tottenham fans are there about Ryan Yates, saying how he's a nuisance, saying how he's an idiot, saying how he's a nightmare to play against. And that epitomises what Ryan Yates is really, right? So I think he's suited well against those teams. Away from home, particularly, I think he struggles, which is maybe a bit odd to say. And you could say, oh, well, how does the City ground make a difference or not? But I truly think it does with him. And I think he struggles against sides like Bournemouth, where they've got an equivalent of Ryan Yates in their midfield, and he can't really get under their players' skins. And I just think he sometimes actually struggles against, on paper, the lower half of the Premier League rather than the top half of the Premier League. So that's my point with him. And I think he's just had an off day like everyone else has. I don't know what you think, Sarah.
Well, I was probably one of those that was surprised to see him over Dominguez, because Dominguez had played so well. But I must be honest, at full time, I was saying we'd only conceded 1 goal with Ryan on the pitch, and we'd conceded 4 more once he did the changes. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and both, because was he good enough to start? But actually, yeah, at the end of the day, we only conceded 1 with him on the pitch, which I know he gave the ball, but the ball got taken off him high up the pitch, and he didn't get back, and defenders didn't defend very well, and nobody closed him down and all the rest of it. But he saved 1 off the line as well, so I kind of thought, well, he's paid that 1 back, because that looked like it was going into me as well, because that was right in front of me. So the debate on Ryan Yates will go on forever, won't it? I hear it both ways. So I was surprised he started, but at the end of the game, I was like, okay, well, we didn't do that bad that half, did we? So
well, in comparison, no.
No, so
but Dominguez had a shocker.
He had an
absolute shocker. So,
but he wasn't the only one, was he? I mean,
no, he wasn't.
I mean, our team, we're quite fast, aren't we? And we're good on the break, but we looked like we were in running through treacle compared to Bournemouth. They were a lot faster, sharper, everything. So I don't know. Have we ran them into the ground, as one of the comments have said? But we've certainly got the best out of our players so far, and Nuno's got to try and get it again, and that includes Ryan Yates. But he gives everything, doesn't he? And I think there is a place for him in certain games. Definitely, maybe that wasn't it on Saturday, but it didn't look like it was Dominguez's either.
Yeah.
No. My concern for Dominguez is that if Dominguez was a really quality player, then he would have just beaten Ryan Yates out for a spot, wouldn't he? And because that he hasn't, and we know the ceiling with Ryan Yates, and Ryan Yates continues to beat off every single person who makes it into the team. He, Dominguez may not quite be up to it. So we'll see what happens with Danilo and Sangare, won't we? The new signings of our returning players. Fingers crossed. Please, Sangare, just be a star. Please, just be good.
Well, he did start the season looking okay, didn't he?
He did, didn't he?
So, but we could have done with probably somebody like him to break up. Nobody could break up the play midfield because they were just too fast for us. They'd already gone.
Yeah.
We were just a second behind them, I think. For whatever reason, whoever we want to blame for, we were just not. We were the second best team on the day, and everything, and it could have been more than 5 at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and that is the concerning thing. Is it could have been more than 5? I think did Bournemouth hold the record for one of the teams in the Premier League with the biggest win, or it could be the Football League. I was looking at that yesterday. It could be 9-10-0, something like that. At least it wasn't that every cloud and all of that. Let's look ahead to Saturday. Forest have got to bounce back, and it's not an easy test against Brighton. Dave, 12:30. That's a bit of an early one for you, isn't it? Or does that work out quite nicely with the time difference?
It is. The Sydney Nottingham Forest supporters group are getting together at the Cheers Bar. So I was going to get that in. So thank you for giving me the chance to shout that out. So if anyone is listening and you are in Sydney, there is a Nottingham Forest supporters group on Facebook. Absolute bunch of legends. And I've got my Frank Clark book, which I've already read, that I'm going to give to someone who comes along to that event because I obviously don't need to read it or need it anymore. So yeah, that match just can't come soon enough for the Nottingham Forest players, can it? Like the club will... Everyone around will be wanting the match to come as soon as possible, but we probably need a little bit of time just to get ourselves right and freshen up and just get the motivation right. So, look, it's a big game. I think the Forest fans will respond, led by the great Max Hayes in attendance, no doubt, just inspiring the S-houchery that we expect from the Nottingham Forest fans. And boy, don't we need a win. And it's okay for us to drop a game every so often. That's what's going to happen. We're still, 4 points clear of 4th?
Yep.
We're doing all right.
Yeah, absolutely. You've just got to look at the bigger picture, haven't you? You can be so focused on one result, but you have got to look at the bigger picture. Sarah, just before we go, you confident that Forest can get a result on Saturday? We can bounce back.
We can do. How confident I am, I don't know. It's going to go either way, isn't it? So I'm hoping we can. But Brighton are also a good side. They're not picking up as many wins as I expected. I think they've just lost to Everton, haven't they? So 1-0, which they'll be disappointed. So they'll be wanting to bounce back as well as us. So yeah, let's go for it. It's going to I think we're going to let a goal in. So I'll go for 2-1. I don't know if you wanted a prediction, but I've got to go for a Forest win. I always do.
Yeah, we'll go with that. 2-1 would be nice. Bounce back at the City Ground. It's on TV as well, isn't it? So there's a bit of a big feature on TNT for that game. So fingers crossed, Forest. We were first. Were we first on Match of the Day? I didn't actually watch Match of the Day this week.
Amazingly, we were first. It's the first time I can remember us being on Match of the Day first. What a surprise! 5-0 and they put us on first. It's great, isn't it? And they panned to me and Mick in the crowd, and we looked very sad. And everybody sent me all the photos saying, "We saw you." All the Derby fans that I know, all the Leicester fans. So yeah, they've all they haven't. Well, Leicester had a good weekend, but Derby didn't. But they all had a good weekend, laughing at the Forest fans looking sad on Match of the Day.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's like that Derby chant we saw you cry on the telly, but it could be worse. You could be a Derby fan, couldn't you? Sat in the bottom half of the Championship, probably going towards League One. They seem to want Paul Warne out as well. So, miles above Forest are at the minute. Going to end with this comment from Anne, which I think sums it up very nicely. Bad day at the office. We move on. Yeah, no need to panic yet. Maybe a different conversation if we get hammered against Brighton. But that won't happen because this is the new Forest, remember. Sarah, appreciate your time. Know you've been at work, so thanks for putting us down as a work meeting, I'm sure, on Teams.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was on my break. I came in early.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Dave, thanks as well, mate, as ever. And I guess you didn't get a noise complaint on Saturday, so that's a positive.
I definitely did not get a noise complaint, but I will just say I apologise to everyone Normally when I come on this podcast, I always rewatch the match. I didn't this time. Sorry. I just couldn't.
I don't think many of us did, Dave. I'm sure the
No.
whole of the. I'm sure the majority of the Forest.
Can you make Dave Asprey just rewatch the match just as the next thing? Oh, we want to go deep.
Do you know what? Dave texted me. I mean, I asked him if he could come on the podcast, but he was busy doing his usual PT and stuff, which he's doing a great job of. And he texted me to say, let me get his comment up. He put, he says, I can't, mate. I'm driving back from Bournemouth. Positivity, ? We're still third in the league where absolutely none of us ever imagined we'd be. We've lost once in the last 10 and Bournemouth are still, despite their current hot streak, 4 points adrift of us. Every human has a not so good day and ours was yesterday. Anyway, all that can be influenced now is Brighton at home next Saturday. So there you go. Dave Asprey to finish with unbelievable positivity. The Saint Dave. So great little monologue there from him. Right, we'll be back throughout this week. We'll have a preview with you on Thursday or Friday for the Brighton game. It might come a little bit earlier as well, depending on everything. Then, of course, usual place and time next Sunday or Monday for our review on Brighton. Fingers crossed, Forest bounce back as we are still third in the Premier League. You Reds.